great this morning. You changed it up. Threw me off guard there.
When it's so early, I don't remember what I usually say, and just anything comes out. So it's I think that's what happened there.
Yeah, I haven't even brushed my teeth yet.
Yeah, I'm still. Yeah. These early morning ones are always kind of weird because of that. But thank you for joining me. I'm glad we could do this. I'm still reeling off the news I'm looking at right now, where it says the CDC has released guidance where they're encouraging virtual holidays this holiday season coming up. Have you seen that?
Well, just recently I saw it. I didn't click on the article because, of course, I'm not going to pay it, do what they tell me. But I do like the fact that they're still putting out guidance and still thinking that we should, pay attention to it, take them seriously.
Yeah, another Christmas over Zoom.
I know. Just like my last
Teams
one.
meeting. It is actually perfect for people who hate their family, though, right? I mean, these last couple of years, they've had a great excuse. Like, oh, you don't like going, traveling up to see your uncle and your aunt, whatever. It's like, hey, man, just, send them the old Zoom link, say hi for 15 minutes and it's over.
Well, I think at this point, okay, so the pandemic's been raging around the world for 2 years now. By then, it will be about 2 years. So if you look at it that way and you say that the average person lives to be about 80 and it's already been raging for 2 years, now you got to throw away the first 3 or 4 years of your life because you can't remember them anyway. And then the last 3 or 4 years probably not going to be that great either. So you're left with about, say, 70 years. Now, out of that 70 years, 2 years of them have already been crushed by a pandemic. Maybe you don't want to be wasting Christmases anymore. And not just the pandemic, because, you might get wasted by, I don't know, a random car wreck or a pulmonary embolism. There's all kinds of things. So we can't keep throwing away Christmases and holidays because we kind of take them for granted. And doing it over Zoom, no one's going to do that anyway. And if you do, you're a fucking moron. That's fine. Enjoy yourself if that's what you want to do. If you want to sit on your computer and have a virtual holiday. But no real person is going to heed the CDC's advice anymore. There've been too many inconsistencies, and no one takes it seriously.
Yeah, they're really highlighting the need for air circulation. So if you're going to be indoors, number one, wear masks.
Sure.
Number two, keep a door open and keep the air circulating, either using a fan or so on. Because it says you can use a window fan and an open door to blow air out, the other one to pull fresh air in, keep windows open, or everybody stay outside, keep 6 feet, and wear masks. So
the nerve of these people to say that shit with a working vaccine. Remember the whole vaccine thing where it's like, oh, you're going to take this and you're going to be good. Oh, no. Sorry, they don't work. So you're still going to have to do all the stuff you did before and take this shot. So that's beautiful. I love that. And with the air circulation, can you use like a little midget with and I said midget, I know, little person, with some kind of fan that, moving back and forth rapidly? Would that be an acceptable source of circulation during your outdoor event?
It seems fine to me. Kind of you sort of made me think of the what is it? Is it the pharaohs or whatever that they used? Was it palm leaves to circulate air? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that would be fine. But yesterday, Dr. Fauci made his rounds on the Sunday shows, and he was actually asked about Christmas and holidays, and they said, holidays are coming up. What kind of guidance can we give our viewers? And he basically said, you know what, it's a little too early to tell. Yeah. It's a couple months away, and I think politically it was smart of him because he's learned over time. Let's not look too far ahead because it ends up looking bad on him because he'll kind of make these predictions and so on. So he said, let's take it one day at a time. But holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it is a little too early to tell. Right now, our main priority is getting everyone vaccinated. Apparently 55% are fully vaccinated of the population here in the States.
It seems to be working
64%, he said, have received one dose. He also was in favor of the California mandate for all children to be vaccinated.
Sure.
Before returning to school. I forgot when that goes into effect and all. And he said that, anybody who's against these vaccines and against these vaccine mandates, we've had them for so long with the measles and the mumps and so on. You wouldn't be able to even go to school without, participating in that. So,
that's totally not the same.
That was basically everything he said.
Yeah, that's basically not the same at all. We have a vaccine right now that's out that seems to be not a vaccine. It's more like the flu shot where you just get it and maybe it makes the symptoms a little less. Maybe it protects against a certain strain, but it's definitely not a vaccine because the vaccine, that's why they call it the flu shot. They don't call it the flu vaccine because it's not a vaccine. It has the same kind of effect as the COVID-19 vaccine, which is not a vaccine. It's just a shot that may help you a bit if you choose to get it. And, with the flu shot in the past, you could choose to get it, or you could say, no, I appreciate it, no thank you. But now you don't have the choice to say no thank you. And it's becoming more and more strict. I was talking the other day with someone. We were riding in the car, and they said, well, it's only right now, at least it's only companies that only have 100 employees or more. Well, first of all, that's not a good thing either, because that level of control has been seldom seen in the history of our country. And usually when they had that kind of level of control in this country, there was a large riot and guns on the other side of the argument to make them stop telling them what to do. But to think that they would stop at companies with 100 employees is foolish. They're going to think of a different way to penalize people and make them do something they don't want to do just because they can. And we can see this around the world. This used to be kind of a last bastion of freedom. But now we're in the pursuit of being, maybe, I'm trying to get these words right here, maybe in the pursuit of being, not looking like we're against science or we're backward or stupid or silly. We're just going to do what we're told. And now we're going to have to do what we're told because we can't make a living. We can't actually earn our money to pay for food and shelter. It's coming to that. And I don't know where it goes from there. But I'm not trying to get all grim right now, this early in the morning. I don't think I have the stomach for it. I'm only half a cup of coffee in.
No. Well, look, the videos that we're seeing around the world, I mean, the ones that stand out to me the most that I've seen have been Australia and Canada. And anytime I watch those, and what I mean by those, there was like a video the other day of a guy in a park that was basically being arrested. He was like out there on his lunch break, having lunch with somebody else, and I don't know if they were too close to each other. I don't know if
he had his mask off.
You weren't allowed to be in a park. He had his mask off, and the police came up, and I think they were trying to just get him to leave, and he was like, look, dude, I'm just having lunch. Can you just leave us alone? And that led to him getting arrested. But just people just getting arrested for, not showing their not having their papers on them. And sometimes it's like kind of violent looking, people are getting tackled to the ground. And anyway, all that to say, when I watch that, I think, nah, man, that can't happen over here. And I mean, part of me does believe that, but, and Canada's been wild, and they've been kind of spiraling for a while now. And I really hope that that kind of stuff wouldn't happen here, but I do think there are a lot of people in our country that have these kind of authoritarian feelings where they would almost like that. When you talk to somebody who's really into mandates, that are really into like kind of the opposite of what you're saying, they would totally support that. Yeah, people should be arrested for not showing their vaccination status, or they should be arrested for not vaccinating their kids and stuff like that. So yeah, I have a hope that it wouldn't happen here, but what do you think? You think it actually could happen over here?
When we look at the what Australia is a lot different from the United States of America. To point that out, we think they're kind of the same, but there's a lot of differences there. They actually don't have the right for free speech. It's not written to their constitution. They don't have any guns. That was all taken away in the 90s, in 1996, I believe. they don't have the right to assemble the way that we do, because their rights, and I hate to be, because I'm kind of like stealing this information, because that's all information is, right? You steal it from somebody else. So I'm not trying to plagiarize someone who did all the research. I'm just regurgitating what I've heard from other people who've actually done the research. Their constitution is not based on the fact that we have these inalienable rights. Their constitution basically says that the government gives them these rights. So right off, they're starting from a premise that doesn't align with what the United States of America is. So when it actually gets put into practice, they're a little shocked as well, because they probably lived under the illusion that they had a pretty cool place to live. But they were lucky for so long, because no real tragedy came along to kind of poke the bear. Now the bear has been released, and they've been living these last 30 or 40 years, probably longer than that, in relative peace and splendor. That beautiful accent and the nice beaches. We're having a great time out here. And then some real shit happens, or not real shit, however you want to look at it, and the government takes full control of the situation. And they're shocked, and they're outraged. Now, to say that this could not happen in the United States of America is foolish. Anything can happen anywhere. It's less likely to happen here because of all the other factors, because of the actual density of population and the amount of weaponry and the laws that actually are in place. But we can already tell that the laws don't seem to mean that much anyway, because you can just suspend them whenever you want to. You can just mandate something that goes against the laws that are already in place. And no one seems to push back that much. They push back, but the pushback process is slow, whereas the initial action is quick. So it takes a long time to respond to one of these actions. And I was listening to some news the other day, and it was Nancy Pelosi. She was being interviewed. They were talking about the new bill that's out there right now, trying to get that through. We need that $3.5 trillion ready to go, because we have to continue this Obama legacy. We have to continue this Obama plan. She actually said that. She slipped a bit. She said the Obama plan. Did you hear that? Did you see that? Mm-hmm. That is kind of interesting. Now,
I didn't see that one, though.
Yeah, she is kind of old, right? She's older than Biden. So we have these almost 80-year-old leaders of the Democratic Party who are not actually leaders, of course, because there's no doubt. You can call this a conspiracy theory if you like. Obama is running that fucking party from his own little home. And that sounds like a whack job, Alex Jones conspiracy, but it seems to be accurate, because the plan that's been put into place is coming from that camp. Because we always ask, where is Biden getting these ideas from? He's been half full his entire life. He has no brain to speak of. He just does whatever he's told. He's always been a yes man and a second in charge. So who's giving all these ideas that we need to withdraw from Afghanistan, that we need to push this in a very clever way, working with OSHA? It definitely was. Do you think Joe Biden sitting around his office and came up, I have a stroke of genius here. We'll just use OSHA and my powers. Come on. Joe Biden has no thoughts like that.
Well, I loved the OSHA part of it, because, working in the safety world, and OSHA to me was always just kind of, I know they could find people and so on, but they were just this kind of toothless, weak, thing. They never really had much bite to them. And then now all these mandates are going through OSHA, who
those poor OSHA.
I don't know. It just didn't seem. Yeah, exactly. I mean, OSHA should be able to find somebody who's not doing the right thing at a business here. Has somebody not wearing the right stuff, or they're polluting, whatever it is. But they have one inspector in the South. They just have nobody working for them. They're poorly funded. They're just kind of a weak organization, and this is how they decided to do those mandates. I thought it was creative, at least. Well,
yeah, it's definitely creative, and it's definitely beyond the creativity of our commander in chief. But I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to dig into this 2,500 page bill that's going to be going through soon. Because do you think they're actually going to not fund the government? Do you think we're actually going to not expand the debt ceiling? What happens when all those payments stop? When the country grinds to a halt? And we always do this. Every year for the last 10 years, if I can recall correctly, we always say we're not going to push the debt ceiling anymore. And then we eventually do push the debt ceiling, because we have to push the debt ceiling, because we're We're just in this spending spiral that we've been in for quite some time, and once you're this deep into it, you can't stop. It doesn't stop that way because there's too much pain. There's too many consequences for it to stop. Too much stuff gets killed or pushed back. You have and how much stuff is buried into this bill that we're not aware of? We're going to have to do a deep dive. I'm going to have to do a deep dive as much as I can into a 2,500-page bill because the mandate for OSHA is one thing. But now the penalty for not complying with a mandate, which is not legal and not a law, is going to be $700,000 per infraction. So that seems a little suspect. So I kind of wonder how many other things are buried within this 2,500-page document. And can we all agree that perhaps having a bill, an omnibus spending package that is 2,500 pages might be one of the dumber things that we've ever allowed in our history as a country?
The thing can have just so much in it, for sure. And they do. Like, I remember, like I've said before, I follow sports, and they had one of these omnibus bills. Excuse me. They had one of these omnibus bills a few years ago. It just had everything in it, and somewhere in the middle of it was this thing. There was like this baseball law, and the baseball, side of things. They were getting all fired up about it, but it was like the bill had everything from. It just touched as many things as you could think of, and not only that, but it's amazing they ask these Congress people to vote on it when there's no way they could read the whole thing. Yeah, somebody could give them some outlines of things that are in it, but no, let me just kind of take one step back real quick. You mentioned, with the mandates, and one thing I've seen a lot in some videos in Australia and Canada have been, every once in a while they'll be talking to these police officers, and the police are like, "Look, man, like, I'm with you. Like, I feel you. I'm kind of on your side a little bit. Like, I'm, and, but they're like, look, I got to do my job, but I support what you're doing," kind of thing. Or like, the police are being asked to do something. These guys want to keep their jobs, and, so they do it. And yeah, I'm sure there's some more hardcore folks on the police force that, you do. And I sort of feel sorry for some of those cops that are asked to do things that they don't want to do. At what point do you think somebody pays more attention to like how they actually think or how they actually feel and said, you know what, I'm being asked to do something that's like against my own morals, against my own thoughts, and I don't want to do it, so I'm going to step away. And, honestly, I think if enough people actually listened to that part of themselves, a lot of this stuff would never happen. But so many people really do compromise, where they say, well, this doesn't really affect me that much, so I'll just sit back and stay quiet. And so one thing will go through, and then the next thing happens, and then after a while, then it starts to eat them up a little bit, where it's like, wait, no, wait, you want my kid to be vaccinated? No, I don't want that. It's like, well, you sat quietly back while businesses were being closed. You sat back quietly while other mandates were happening for bigger businesses, and now it's going to eat you, and there's really nothing you can do because at this point that ball's been rolling and nobody's stopping it.
There's a lot of things there. One of the things is there's always a ruling class, there's always a group in power, and then there's another group that's a step down from them, and they're the actual enforcers of that group power. And those people who are in the enforcement category think that they're in the club. They think that they're part of the show, when in fact they're just used as tools to enforce the will of the upper class. This has always kind of happened. If you think about any war that has ever been fought, you have large countries going against one another, and you have a couple leaders on either side. They're not actually doing any fighting, but you have millions of people below them who have basically been coerced, whether it be through propaganda or whether it was actual physical coercion. But one way or the other, those people were told to do something, and then they were either shamed into doing it or tricked into doing it, because you have entire nations lined up firing guns at one another. Most of the people on the battlefield don't even know why they're fucking fighting. They just know the other person's evil. They know the other side is bad. They're fighting back and forth. So you can actually trick, cajole, force a human being to do something that violates their very core just because of the consequences of not doing what they're told. I've seen the videos of the cops on the streets trying to they're just regular people. They're trying to agree with these people. They're telling them, look, I agree with you. I don't want to be doing this either, but, I got a pretty good pension. I got a nice little savings plan. My wife and I, she's pregnant. I got shit to do. They're not looking long-term because you don't live in the long-term. You don't live in your principles. When it actually comes down to shattering your comfort level and saying, if I do this, I'm going to be destroying what I have right now. And I'm actually going to have to back it up and live on a principle. Rather, right now, I just like my TV, and I just like, going to bed with my wife every night and making everything nice and secure, because that's what most people want to do. But when it comes down to it, and you actually have to shatter that illusion that what you're doing isn't an evil thing or an unjust thing. So nobody really, it's a difficult thing for a person to get rid of that comfort. Comfort's the number one thing. You just prod somebody just a little bit, and you lure them with comfort, and next thing you know, you got people walking down the streets fighting people they agree with at a basic core level.
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, when they different states managed things differently, but I remember seeing a gym in New Jersey. So New Jersey got locked down pretty hardcore. But after a couple months, I mean, these businesses were really hurting, and this gym owner said, "You know what? We're not complying anymore. We're going to open our business." And so they kind of made this announcement on I think it was national news. Well, obviously I heard about it, and the police were there at the door the day they were planning on opening, and it became this kind of big thing. But since then, since like early 2020, they've said we're going to stay open. And what the state did was they said, okay, you're going to go against our rules. You're going to be fined like $15,000 a day. So since February of 2020, whatever it is, every day it's just been this running tally of like 15 grand a day, and until now. And not only that, but the state gets even more upset about, okay, well, now you don't have this, you don't have that. So they're continuing to fine them, but they stay open. And I remember, thinking at the time, golly, man, like, do you really need to do that? Can't you just? I'm sure you can manage and stay closed a little bit longer. This thing will pass, but it hasn't passed. They still are being fined daily because they're not allowed to be open still to this day. So it's just that running tally. And now I think, okay, we're in 2021, and I see, I started following one of the gym owners on social media. Now I'm like, okay, now I understand, and I'm sort of thankful that they did what they did. They haven't had any big super spreader events. They haven't had any kind of anybody getting, as far as we know, getting sick and dying at their gym. And they had some conviction. They stood up for what they believed in. Now they're getting buried by these fines, but there's been support and stuff like that. But it is interesting how that happens. Like I said, even me at the time kind of had those thoughts where like, oh man, just kind of comply for a little bit. This thing will pass, but it hadn't passed. So it is kind of good that they just did what they did and stayed open. And it was kind of a little bit of a blueprint for other people to wake up to, I think.
I don't think it would have occurred to the founding fathers of the nations or the generations that came before that the government could just tax you to such a certain degree that they could throw you in jail if you didn't pay it. If someone comes up to you and says, "You give me half your money, or I'm gonna tie you up and keep you bound down for the rest of your life," you would say, "Well, that's a villain. That's a bad person on the other side of that argument." But we just kind of quietly and tacitly agree that that's how life is, because the government does that to us every day. They tell us, "You give me half of what you have, or we'll put you in jail. We'll take away your ability to earn a living." And now it's just more and more overt because they change the narrative. They warp it to fit whatever they want. They're telling millions of people right now, "You will do what I tell you, or I'll take away your ability to earn a living, to provide for your family, and to live. I'll take away your ability to live if you don't do what I want you to do," which is kind of 180 out from what this country's supposed to be about. You remember old Wesley Snipes? Remember an action hero Wesley Snipes when he didn't pay his taxes and they put him in the pokey? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they put him in jail because he didn't pay his taxes, and everybody laughed at him. It's like, that's what happens, you fucking moron, when you don't pay old Uncle Sam. He's going to come take your shit. That's not always been the case because there was no income tax. Historically, there was no income tax until the early 1900s. It was a completely crazy idea that you would be handing over your money. But once you started handing over your money, it never fucking stopped. It never fucking stops. Because once they start doing something, they don't stop doing it. They don't ever really stop doing it. Once they take some power, they don't ever give it back. And just keep taking more and more. And then it becomes, with AOC walking into the Met Gala with tax the rich. And some people laugh and some people jeer. And it's like, yes, tax the rich. Well, they're not just taxing the rich. What they're doing is they're taxing everyone. They're taxing everyone because they can. Because what are you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything. This guy right here is going to get taxed out of his mind. He's getting fined out of his mind $15,000 a day. Eventually, that's going to come due. And what are they going to do to that guy? You think they're really going to care about public opinion when it comes down to it? No, they're going to put that guy in jail. And there's not a goddamn thing anybody can do about it. Because the state won. They have won. I don't know how to fight them. How does anyone fight them without some kind of revolution?
Yeah. No, that's right. Well, just I want to dive in a little bit of what you said a bit ago, where you said there was kind of a ruling class and then there was people below them. I haven't read it yet, but when I woke up this morning, I did a little search for some news, and there's it's still coming out, but the Pandora Papers. So it's the biggest ever leak of offshore data that exposes financial secrets of a lot of rich and powerful people. Mm-hmm. And I kind of scrolled through this a little bit, and there's some people that stand out. I don't know who hacked them or how this information got out there, but like the ruler of Jordan, there's a lot of documents that reveal, he's got like a property empire of over $100 million from, and a lot of it's over here in the States, Malibu, Washington, and Malibu's crazy. The prices over in Malibu, London, Washington, and so on. The ruling family of Azerbaijan, same thing, ton of real estate, especially in London. The Prime Minister of Czech Republic, Tony Blair, the Ukrainian president, and Kenya. Kenya kind of surprised me a little bit. I know Kenya is financially just kind of really not doing well, but the president, who I think he's got, there were just released in this alone over 30 million as property in London and in other parts of the world. A lot of these people are political leaders. I'm assuming that's kind of it. I'm not trying to go down another rabbit hole here, but these are the kind of enforcers, right? And it's basically like these people get paid, financial, the political contributions or whatever, and they kind of they run the show. And again, it like we talked about it a little bit before. I don't know why Kenya stands out to me so much, but I mean, people are really struggling over there. And not like this guy's not allowed to make money, but we haven't even seen his bank statements or anything. We just know he's got over $30 million worth of property in other parts of the world. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any, excuse me, I don't think there's any leaders around the world who are really hurting for cash right now. Because once you're in the position of power, once you actually lead something, you're going to kind of be well taken care of. And it's kind of assumed now in these days, and probably throughout history, that the guy telling people what to do has probably got a little cash stacked away. So we look up under the illusion that, our president only makes $400,000 and the senators only make $174,000. And these different leaders, I mean, do any of them have a salary that says $1 billion a year? No, of course not. That's a rhetorical question. None of them have that. But we know that they're just grifting the system somehow. We know that they're just making wise investments somehow. How does one obtain $100 million worth of real estate making a couple $100,000 a year in salary? You don't. You're stealing that shit. You're a thief. You're a corrupt person. So the people in charge who are millionaires and who have who have made this amount of money over the course of their lifetime, we just take it. Okay, that's just how it goes. The guys in charge get all the money, they get all the power, and that's just the way it is. That's really not the way it should be, but should be and are oftentimes not the same thing. You know, we can look at that. Our leaders right now, even the poorest among them, have gigantic homes and sometimes second or third homes, or they live in pretty much, they're affluent, right? You can see that. I'm going back to AOC. I won't leave that alone. She got an invite to a $35,000 per table or per in ticket event. That's just an ancillary benefit. They just wanted her to come. So now I don't know, like with Kenya, historically Africa has been, at least for the last 100 years or so, they've been in a bit of a pinch. Not a whole lot of cash floating around there. But anytime that there's the leader of a country, he's going to have the cash. The whatever aid he gets or whatever income the country makes through taxation or theft, he's going to have the money. So it doesn't shock me as much to know that he has $30 million. What is probably even more shocking that's probably just the tip of the iceberg. These Pandora Papers probably don't illustrate. These leaders are probably laughing. They say, "Oh, these journalists think that they've uncovered our real wealth." But what is wealth? It's just a consolidation or the representation of power, because buying power is power. Power and freedom from someone being able to tell you what to do and control you. And once you have that ability to control your own fate, your own fortune, it's basically fuck you money. You can't be controlled as much as you could be. And then, but you don't ever want to lose it.
Yeah, I just read a little bit more in not Pakistan's prime minister, but one of his what is this? He's a prominent minister on the team over there. He was in here for about almost $34 million in offshore assets, including real estate in Singapore and so on. So, yeah, I think you're exactly right. It probably is just the tip of the iceberg. It talks because I think a lot of them have like multiple holdings and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens as more of this comes out. But yeah, I mean it's a tale that's been around for a while, right?
Yeah,
I mean these leaders that just make a ton of money. It's not part of their salary, but they get paid for other. Various other things. I remember a few years ago when I started looking into it, the speaking fees that a lot of these people make are just insane. They'll go speak at a college. They'll go speak over in another country, make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's not even how they probably make their real money. That's just something they were sort of doing on the side.
Yeah, a little side hustle, like door dashing.
But yeah.
So
exactly.
I mean, you kind of like. I was just thinking about, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm just thinking about: are any of these people cool? How did they become leaders? You got a couple of shining stars out there. You got a couple that are impressive, but if you think by and large about the people who are actually leading the countries, they're boring. They're not that imaginative, and a lot of times they just say whatever a poll tells them to say, especially in the West. Not so much in the rest of the world where it takes, charisma and power. But are any of them? Who's like the shining example of an interesting person? Because, Joe Biden is not an interesting guy. He never has been. Trudeau, not so interesting. He seems to like blackface a lot, but other than that, I don't know a lot about him. Really, who are these? This is like the best people. It's never the best people that we elect. It's always just the people who can play the system the best.
It's a good point. I mean, none of them really are overly creative, overly interesting. They really seem to, they go off polling. I think you're exactly right. It's not like people that do those jobs. They're really good seeing which way the wind's blowing and just kind of hopping on that and then just taking it where it takes us. A lot of them really aren't grounded in any kind of like actual beliefs or anything like that, because you see how it evolves a lot over time. Except there's a few people that were saying something back in, these people are extremely old. A lot of the ones that are prominent now anyway over here in the States, but they were saying something in the 70s and they're still saying it. But a lot of them, like it came up a lot during this last election cycle where there was some crazy stuff that Biden said back in like the 70s or 80s, whenever it was he was in the Senate. And that's just been like a 360 or a 180. Sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, now we'll see what happens with that story as it evolves a little bit.
Yeah, because like you said, he's changed a lot over the last 30 or 40 years, but everybody changes. But he is just mirroring or parroting whatever he's told, whatever seems to work at the time, because he's a career politician, and that's kind of like his second skin. That's just what he knows. He's out of touch with what it means to be a real person, because he's never been a real person. And he's definitely not been a real person for the last 50 years. You can see that in the way presidents speak and the way they talk to people. When he had the address the other day, and it says, our patience is wearing thin. I'm going to keep bringing that up. He's obviously not been confronted with a person when he says stuff like that, because he hasn't lived and ever existed in real society. He doesn't know that if you say that to a person on the street about some kind of issue, they're going to tell you, I don't give a fuck, because that's how real life works on a street level. So he's so removed from that. It's a theater and a show for that. Speaking of a show, have you heard about that? I know we don't have much time left, and I'm not sure if you want to move on or not. We do have Dragon Man out there still lurking in the shadows.
Yeah. You got all the info on that. You want to kind of set the table on that?
Well, sure. On Dragon Man, and if you haven't heard of Dragon Man, what he is now, this is according to scientists. The skull was found in China. Apparently, this skull had been down in a well for the last 90 years or so, because the Chinese man hid it in the well because he didn't want the Japanese to take it back in 1933 when they invaded the country and raped and killed all these different people. That's the rape of Nanking, famously. So the guy hid it in the well, and then 90 years later, for some reason, the guy's descendants decided to go ahead and show the world this skull. And this skull has a huge brow ridge. It's a very deep set brow. It's a big skull as well, and it's kind of a little bit strange shape. It doesn't really look like a human skull that much, but it has the characteristics of it. So scientists have determined that this skull is 146,000 years old, and not only is it 146,000 years old, it's a completely different subspecies of human, or maybe cousin species of human being, where it is right alongside the Neanderthals and the Homo erectus, and then cousin to Homo sapien. So from this one skull, they have determined that there's a brand new species out there that we've completely forgotten about. And not only that, I guess my science is a little old. I know science is ever evolving, but now human beings, our first ancestors, when I was a kid, back when in high school, they used to be 3.2 to 3.5 million years old. But now apparently it's double that. It's 7 million. And then 10 years ago, the entire history of the human species was 200,000 years old. And now the entire history of the species is about 400,000 years old. So I do find it interesting that we take one skull and we base an entire species off that skull. And scientists have all kind of agreed here that this is a brand new species, when in fact it could just be somebody with a really big head, misshapen head. Because there's no other way to determine it. You can determine the age, but what else do you have? So this is kind of how science has worked throughout history. It's always fucking up, because that's what science does. It fucks up, and then you try to understand it as you go along. Was there a reason why they needed to make a new species called Dragon Man, or I think it's called Homo Lippi? I'll have to look that up. It doesn't matter, because it's fucking horseshit. Because a lot of our history, a lot of our science is based off of complete horseshit, because we just don't know. I remember famously Argentinosaurus. My son had that toy when he was a kid. I said, "What the fuck is an Argentinosaurus?" So, Dad, that's the largest dinosaur to ever live. So I had to Google that, look it up, and they based an entire species off of a fragment of a piece of skeleton, off of a vertebrae. So here we go, Argentinosaurus. It was this big and it was this color, and it ate this plant, and it lived in this area, and it probably did what? You're going off of one piece of bone. Just the way we're going off an entire new species off of one misshapen skull.
Fragment.
Yeah. So I kind of look at science.
What I love about this,
go ahead.
Yeah, before we started recording, you said they found this skull, and everything that you've talked about, where they're trying to determine how the age and all this stuff. But you also said they made a computer design of what this thing looked like, which I love. That's my favorite part about it, especially if it's maybe they have a full skeleton, which if they have that, I think they can really get close. But when you're talking about, so this is the first time I've heard about Argentinosaurus. This is the first time. So, but I do love that from what you said, a bone fragment, and next thing they have all this information about the size and everything like that. And but no, the computer designs, those are my favorite, because you don't have a full skeleton, but I guess you have enough where you can just create this design and now it's like, okay, this is what it is. Actually, so my kids, they're super young, but like my 4-year-old at the time, she was probably 3. She came home one day from daycare and said, we're talking about dinosaurs, and she said something about Patasaurus, and I was like, huh? She was like, yeah, something about a Patasaurus, and like it's been a long time since I've really looked into dinosaurs or cared much about them, and I was like, I don't. I was asking my wife, like, what Patasaurus? And turns out that was something that wasn't really discussed much when I was a kid, but I guess that was a dinosaur. Have you heard of a Patasaurus?
I have not heard of a Patasaurus, and I thought I had heard of almost every dinosaur at this point. I'll have to look that up.
Okay, well, who knows? I'm going off of the words at the time she was a 3-year-old, so maybe she was pronouncing it wrong. Maybe it's... So every time at our house we talk about dinosaurs, we always... No, I haven't looked... I never looked it up, but I can.
This is how shit happens. People, famously, people could say, "Oh, the famous Patasaurus, what it used to live in the plains of South Dakota, back when there were plains in South Dakota." And you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Well, that's just the way it happened. It was a Patasaurus. And then 100 years go by, and everybody says, "Oh, the world famous Patasaurus," and then you look it up, and it never existed. Or they had a toenail, or something along those lines. Even with like the most famous dinosaurs, they usually only parts of a skeleton to put together. Very rarely do you find a complete skeleton of anything. Sometimes it's just a few fragments. I'm not saying dinosaurs are fake. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is we construct narratives that we want to believe based on cursory data that we barely have and understand, which may not even be accurate and true. We do that all of the time. There was no need for us to conduct or construct a new species based on this skull immediately, when we could have done more research, or maybe we could have tried to understand this thing a little bit more before we automatically came out and said this is a new species based on it's not even a full skull. There's no jaw. It's just the top part where the brain was. So I do find it a little suspect that a lot of our scientific research is based on data like this. And I understand we're doing the best that we can with the information provided by the world. But we don't have to completely rewrite narratives based on something that we don't understand. But I guess we do have to, because scientists are people, and they want accolades just like anyone else. It's not so much contributing to understanding the world and how it works some of the time. Some of the time, it's just about being right, or just about being cool and being first to understand something or describe something or name something.
Yeah, so you said that the amount of time that they're estimating humans have been on this earth went from, was it 200 to 400? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I remember specifically when I was a kid, I was told that it was 200,000 years as modern humans, and now it's 400,000 years, and I was also told that the fossil record indicated that human beings as a species, with all the different variations, was about 3.5 million years, and now I'm told that it's about 7 million. So I can kind of, I get it.
So what caused the number to jump, or was it just like over time that's just, it sort of changed?
Well, we kept finding older and older shit. That's basically what it comes down to.
I got you. Yeah.
Even the fossil record, or the record in the Americas when I was a kid, said the average, or the first people to come to the United States, what is now North America, was about 15,000 years. Now data has indicated that 27,000 years ago there were people wandering around this thing. And even then, when I was a kid, I could say, oh, maybe that 15,000 year thing is not correct because it just seems like an awfully convenient thing just based on some little piece of data. When logically you would think that humans have probably been wandering around the globe for quite some time. Now it's 27,000 years, and probably 10 years from now it'll be 50,000 years or even longer. Who knows? Because there are limitations to what we can understand. What we understand is about 1/10 of a half of a nothing about what the world is like. We think we understand it. We construct a story because that's how our brain does it. We're a logical species at the core. We are logical. We say there is a point A, has to get to a point C, so there's got to be a point B. We don't understand this at all. We just try to get some kind of understanding. In the meantime, we take one skull and make an entire species out of it and rewrite the fossil record. I love it.
Well, I think the hope is that science, science should be that thing that's really grounded in fact. I think if science isn't, then I think we're in trouble. So, I mean, I think now with the amount of technology, the amount of information that's out there, you would hope that they would kind of get their stuff together. But I mean, like you said, these are people, so people make mistakes. But
well intentioned sometimes.
I don't know, exactly. Yeah, and I haven't followed this new species that you're talking about, but I don't think there's anything wrong with them just saying, you know what, we're still trying to figure it out. Like, give us some time. We're still digging. We're still evaluating. We're taking samples. We're doing, we're getting some of the best minds in the same room, and we're going to put our heads together and see what happens. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just say that.
You could just say that, but also the only thing that they have to go off is that half of a skull. So what are they going to do? They're going to look at the skull and say, yeah, it's a half a skull. It looks different than the other skulls. That's it. There's no other information. Just some half a skull. That's all you got.
Yeah.
So maybe with just one aberration like that, you could just put that skull to the side and say, if we ever find another couple like these, maybe we can come up with something. Maybe there's something there. Or maybe this one's just a squishy skull that got all deformed and had some kind of aberration from a regular human, and maybe it's only about 80 years old or 150 years old because our way of dating things is kind of suspect anyway. So we could just go there. But nope, just make a new species. That's fine.
It's like Andre the Giant, one of those, I haven't followed, but like one of these huge people, like, I think he's dead by now, but or the guy who was in Princess Bride. Did they have just like enormous mammoth-looking skulls? I'm sure they did, right?
Yeah, they had gigantism. So, yeah, there's Andre the Giant. Had a weird-looking skull.
And I guess this looks different than that thing?
Yeah, just a really big, deep-set, and the people can look it up, a deep-set brow ridge, and the sides of the skull are kind of concave, so the skull would be kind of elongated with a big brow ridge on it. Maybe a different species, or maybe just a human who just had some birth defects. But I'm stupid because I'm no scientist. I don't have a degree, so obviously it's a different species. Or maybe it's not.
There you go.
Anyway, isn't that?
Let's jump into one. I know we got to go soon. One last bit of breaking news from yesterday. A Facebook whistleblower was interviewed on 60 Minutes last night. She was unmasked, as they say. So she had released a bunch of documents to the Wall Street Journal, and she had lawyered up and stuff. And so this was her first time, getting questioned and stuff like that. And some big takeaways were that she's alleging is that, and she actually has quite a few documents behind it, is that Facebook has done a lot of internal studies and research into their own platform, and that they know and that they understand that they're more interested in keeping people engaged on the platform, staring at their screen, staring at their computer, so they can sell ads and so on. And the way they do that is by keeping people engaged with different kind of things, like hateful kind of articles or hateful posts and things that get people fired up and keep them going down that Facebook rabbit hole. So that was one thing. And the other one was that there's been internal studies that have shown that teens, especially teen girls, that especially Instagram for some reason is really harmful for them and increases the chance of them having eating disorders and body dysmorphia and things like that. And Facebook didn't comment about it. They sent one comment, but they weren't interviewed as well. But I was curious if you saw any of that and what your thoughts were.
I actually missed this story, but it's not much of it's a good story because it kind of affirms what people already know. It's like, yes, they want to keep you looking at the phone so they can keep making money. That's kind of how a business works historically. And this one, just because it's an internet business, just because it's a social media platform, is not any different at the end point of it. Underneath all this, we're all together in on this, and we're all just best friends, and it's a kinder, gentler, happier world. At the end of it is money and power, because once you have a lot of money, usually power comes with it. There's no new model there. I do think that we really have to stop using Facebook. I'm going to do my damnedest to barely look at it. We have to use it for this platform a little bit because we have to promote things. And the only reason we have to use that because it's so big. There's so many people out there. And that's why people continue to use it, because they can talk to the people they want to talk to. And everybody's right there in that place. And Facebook works on that model that people don't like change. So Facebook is like home now. When you have all my friends are on there. I can just post something on there and they can talk back and forth. And that's just the model that's there. But it's a terrible fucking platform for the human mind. Just to get caught in that rabbit hole of scrolling. Same thing with Instagram. Same thing with Twitter to, I think, a lesser degree because it is a little bit different. But it's all different sides of the same thing. And it takes up all of your time. I see it all the time with adults and people I know. People who normally would be interacting 10 years ago no longer interact. They would rather just interact with their phone. And not only that, it's commonplace and it's accepted. It's fine. You see a group of adults sitting around, all scrolling together. Well, then you say, oh, they're just checking their feed. They'll get back to talking and conversing and whatnot here soon. It's a terrible fucking thing for the human mind and for the human species. It fractures our attention spans. It makes our attention span. We can't concentrate for longer than 30 seconds. Especially about a minute. Mm-hmm. Is about as long as anybody can seem to be able to concentrate these days. When somebody says, oh, this piece of media or this book, it's too long, it's too big. I can't focus for longer than, because you've been conditioned for the last, 8-9 years at least. Your thumb moves and it stops. Your moves and it stops. And the younger the person is, the faster that process is, because that's just the way that they've grown up. So yes, it is bad for children. It's not just bad for children. I see old people. I see elderly people with their shaky index finger, slowly moving through their feed. And they're talking back and forth because it's like a community. This is a beautiful thing, but they're being manipulated. Their information's being stolen. They have ads tailored to what they want, what they think they want.
Yeah.
By a corporation that just wants to make money. Yeah. We have to stop using these platforms.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that could be good there. Like my family down in Brazil, we're able to stay in touch pretty well.
Sure.
Share pictures and keep in. And I think that is the great thing about these platforms. But you're right. I think we all struggle with it a little bit when you start using these, where you really get sucked into it, where we talked about it before. You're bouncing around, check this social media, then check another one, and next thing you know, it's been an hour. And you're right. Kids, millennials, and so on, get a really bad rap of just being addicted to these things. But the worst is when you see, like you said, kind of an older person who is addicted to it, and they have the exact same behaviors, maybe worse, where they're just a little bit slower at it.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. You stop at a stoplight, you look over to the person next to you, they pull that phone out, they're staring at it, or they might even be staring at it while they're driving. Yeah. But another part of this report was they really, Facebook really tried to do its best, apparently, or they put a few things in place to fight against misinformation during the election. And that was one of the things she talked about. But as soon as the election was over, they shut it down. They shut down this group that was in charge of that. And this woman apparently was part of one of those groups. That's why she wanted to join Facebook. And then apparently January 6th happened, and that was the big reason she decided to come out. Was she has feelings and thoughts that Facebook should always be concerned with this, because she just feels like Facebook is part of the polarization. That's part of the us being at each other's throats, ripping each other apart all the time with the articles and the stuff that's out there, and the fact that it's not just out there, but it's targeted at you. Like the more hateful it is, because basically she says what the algorithm is, it's the engagement. So if something is out there that's really really hateful type language, and people are commenting on both sides, either agreeing or disagreeing with it, Facebook doesn't recognize that as some sort of hateful thing. They just see it as like, oh, wow, this post is getting a ton of engagement. Let's throw it on a bunch of other feeds and see what happens. And that's what she's talking about. And sorry, I know we're kind of running out of time, but this is what I said the other day, where it's kind of both sides. Like one side thinks there needs to be more censorship and more kind of control over this stuff. The other side says there needs to be less. It's just a big hot mess.
Well,
I think there's good things that could happen. These platforms can be good, but they end up being addicting, and there's just so many kind of
Well, it's just like with anything. A human being, if he likes something or if she likes something, usually takes it too far, too extreme. You can have a couple beers every now and then and be fine, but if you drink a 12-pack a day, you're not going to be fine. But we have a hard time. A lot of people have a hard time not doing that because they really like it, and they get addicted to it, and they like it even more. And you can take that example and put it to any different thing. There's lots of different things, because that's just kind of human behavior. That's how a human works. We like to get really good at something, and people become really accustomed to Facebook. And then once you do anything, especially something like that where you're sharing ideas which are tailored in one direction or the other, those ideas infect the person. They become a collection of memes. A person, I talk to people sometimes, and I know what they're telling me is not what they actually think. What they're telling me is something they read on Facebook that they've taken it from that meme and turned into their own thought. I can see it. I can hear it when I talk to them. Because I saw the same meme.
Yeah.
I understand what they're saying. So we all speak in these things, these platitudes that we just read online, that we didn't really do any research about and we didn't think about. It just kind of made sense to us because it reaffirmed what we already thought in the first place and just modified it just a little bit. And yeah, we are kind of running out of time here. I'm going to have to go here, man, but it's been great talking to you.
Okay. Sounds good, man. We'll do it again soon. Thanks for everybody joining us, and we'll do it again some other time.
All right, man.
No top hits, neighbors think it's obnoxious. I'm sorry, Mrs. Anderson, but damn, you gon'